And man, I'll tell you, there's no hospitality, and I hope other areas don't get mad here, like what it is when I walk into New York. The first body I came back to when I came back to Philadelphia. New York. All praises be to the Most High. And I get choked up when I think about it. All praises be to the Most High. So we have to give it up to the Most High, give it up to you. And there's a lot we need to speak about today. Okay? And Elder Lawya is in the back. You can give it up for... You can sit on that side, Elder Lawya. And also through the Spirit of the Most High, we have to give it up for Elder Gabar, whose labor is well known amongst the ministry. All right. That's right. And I tell you, man, there's a lot of great brothers in the ranks coming up, sisters backing them. And hey, what can you say about Shamar? Where is he? Stand up, my brother. Before I go into this lesson, of course, do a little feasting afterwards, and I'm going to sit with the deacons, officers, and leaders here. Let me ask a question before we go into this lesson. Right? How many of you presently in this particular church, in particular, have your passports? Raise your hand. That's good. How many without their passports? Raise your hand. We have to fix that. After the teaching today, I'm going to turn off the cameras because we're broadcasting internationally. And I'm going to talk to you about the next phase of this church and the direction it's going in, based on what you're about to hear within this lesson today. Okay? And you're going to understand why I asked that question about the passports off camera. All right? Let me give you all some insight before I go into the lesson. Years ago, on a corner teaching, myself and a man by the name of Zionash, who I will always respect as an elder, only because of what he's sown in me at a trying time in my life. I'll tell you, how many times we've heard that the Most High work in mysterious ways. But only when you go through a few things in life do you really understand what Mama and Grandmama was saying when she says, let the Lord fight your battles. The Lord works in mysterious ways. All these old church euphemisms and terms. Stuff that you can't really find in the Bible, but you know what they mean. You don't expect the Most High to work in any individual, in yourself, in a time in which you feel you aren't worthy. You can be at your lowest point in your life. And you think you're in that place based on your circumstances, not realizing it's the Most High have you there in contrition, dealing with Him. The world may see it as something entirely different, but in fact, for the first time, you're humbled and need the Most High for guidance. And you can feel that moment, regardless of what the world may think. It's a moment that could change the trajectory of your life. You know your life is in the balance, especially one who believes in the Most High. We're going to do a lesson today called The Present Day Fall of Judea. And why I mentioned Zionish years ago, 2007, 2008. He's overseas, and one day I hope to see him again. At one of the more lower points of my life, Zionish came to me and said, because I said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this. I'm an Israelite. I know what the word says. I know I can see what's going on. But first of all, it's too many struggles. And on top of the struggles, on top of these struggles, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you fight. It'll be our people. It'll be my people fighting against us actually trying to help them. I got my own struggles. I got what's going on with my family, all types of things happening. I can't do this. If one day I'm called to do it, I tried it with one group and tried to do something, growing up and became high in ranks, only for them to show me the steps that I can walk down and get thrown down. I said, you know what? I'm not going to do this. And Zionish, I'll never forget that conversation. He looked right at me and says, Rawchaa, look at me. I'm saying, I'm tired, man. I can't do this no more. I fought against my brothers there, and it's just too much. He said, Rawchaa, I've been in this thing before you was in this thing. I seen when you began to speak. He says, when you first spoke on 15th and Market Streets, you came straight out of the cellar, sewing clothes. And I've never seen a young man speak at a speaking that's an Israelite who got a standing ovation. He says, the Most High gave you a gift to say something to people, to make it easy for them to understand Him. He says, another thing about this is, he says, Rawchaa, the way you see things, it's needed for you to be a teacher. I've been around you. I've seen your ups, downs. I've seen you at your height and at your lowest. And if you don't do it, Rawchaa, who's going to do it? If you don't do it. He says, because I'll tell you what, if you don't do it, Rawchaa, I'm not going to do it either. He says, listen, it's just two of us. Don't make no decisions right now. It's Saturday morning. Let's go out and teach. I won't say nothing. You go out and speak, and I'll read. And then tell me your decision. But whatever the decision you make, I'm behind you. But can you do that for me? I'm crying. I'm going through all types of different emotions. This is 2009. Went out and spoke. Excuse me, let me tie my shoe, because I'll be thinking about this the whole time. Went out to speak, family. And there was police there. There was a crowd that couldn't be held back. There were questions getting answered. The police had to come and make room so that others can come up and ask questions. They was asking about the sign that I had in the back of me showing the satellites and how eventually there will be a worldwide web in the earth that no one can escape, that would actually track every person before it's over. Now, brothers and sisters, this was before flip phones. And I was teaching that on the corner. We came back. Some people came back to get baptized right from that speaking. And then Zionish asked me, so Rawchaa, what you want to do? You think you can give up now? He says, Rawchaa, I didn't say nothing. The only thing I did was read for you. He says, Rawchaa, you can do this. Get up, and we're going to do it from Saturday to Saturday. And then the Most High began to show many understandings, revelation. Flee. Flee. And I said, we're going to have to leave here. Went out into other countries. Now I realize, according to the Bible, he said it would send you out, he would send us out as he goats before the flock. Similar to how Joshua and Caleb sent out spies into the land to make sure it was safe before our people, before the children of Israel would actually go in and have access to freedom. We went out like he-goats among the flocks, or before the flock, to find out what was going on, set up churches all around the earth. All around the earth. Only to come back to America because there was unfinished business. But I'll tell you this. The next time we leave, it will be the last time. And what I would like to say here is coming back, doing this work, setting up all these churches, doing what's needed. I'm going to tell you, it's humbling. It's humbling to have met so many people that I love and care for, that cared for us from afar. And through your prayers, it took us through the world and brought us back, and these prayers are going to guide us all. It's humbling all over the earth to be received not just as an elder, but as a brother. And I'm going to tell you this. There's a lot of shaking going on. And I know everybody's thinking, well, what's going on with this person? What's going on with that? What's going on with that? But it's like this. At a pivotal point in my life, I knew either I would pick up this plow and take it or lay it down. So I pick up the plow. One of the first men in this church to break ground for what had become a great ministry in Christ, through Christ. And let me tell you, so my job is, no matter what the case is, because I know everyone will go through trials and tribulations, self-conviction, self-examination. That's part of the work. I understand it. But these scriptures today is going to give a definitive understanding of what this ministry is, where we are, and the fact that once we break ground, once the Most High had me break ground, and I had that choice in the beginning, that regardless of what happens on this journey, I would work to make this church stronger, so that no matter what happens with the people who would come after me, there'll be a stronger foundation for them to stand on, regardless of their trials and tribulations. And that's for anyone. It doesn't matter. We all fall weak. We all go through issues. But we have to make sure we keep breaking ground and building, so when our brothers and sisters are ready, they have something to stand on. And that's what Christ's church is about. And I'm going to say this before I go into the lesson. I'm going to say this. We as a nation or as a people, or those who believe in Christ, never get caught up emotionally into a moment. Never get caught up in the moment emotionally. You will lose. This is the marathon. And keep in mind, one day with the Lord is as 1,000 years. The moment you're caught up into could be a fraction of a second in the eyes of God. One thing about us, we get too caught up into the moment without seeing the long game. And I'm glad that brother was there with me at that moment, at that pivotal moment in my life that I'll always thank him for, to help me see the long game. In the midst of this journey, the unseen will attempt to stop what Christ started in us. Understand that. With the ministry the Most High have blessed us with, this is not a normal ministry. I don't care what no one thinks. This is not a normal ministry. Satan will do everything to slow up the power and the strength of your walk, of what we have as a body. Why? Because we're showing an example. Not perfect. We all have faults. But as a unit, we have shown an example of people who can believe in God, take hold of their national identity, and show love one amongst another and to others on the outside as Christ would. That's no small thing. I've been all around the earth, and there's nothing like it. It's nothing like the love I've experienced amongst this church. Nothing. So, where are we? I'm gonna save the strength in crisis scriptures for last. But I want to go into this. Full circle. Full circle. I asked if anyone to have a physical Josephus. You have one, Elder Lawya? All right. Full circle. Traveled all around the world. We baptized thousands in the body of Christ. People are getting baptized right now. Hundreds are being baptized as we speak in Africa right now. Soon there'll be hundreds where we'll baptize in India. Okay? We have people in the class from Pakistan. And Christ says, this gospel of the kingdom shall be taught throughout the four corners of the earth, and the end shall come. Folks, why am I going through what I'm going through now? What am I breaking down? I'm going to tell you this right now, that eventually they're going to do another shutdown. Whether it be this winter or next winter, there will be a shutdown of all shutdowns. That's going to drive the people who don't know what's going on mad. So there's something in particular we're looking for within the body to know that there's safety amongst us that I'm going to talk about when this camera go off. The signs are here. Everything that I was shown in 2009 that led to us going out, setting up churches, is unfolding. We're entering the last Jubilee. And the Most High, when he showed what was going to happen years ago, flee, flee, flee. It was preparing me, now that I understand, and us, to be able to make some bold moves. Most people thought we were crazy, but now it's starting to make sense. Even other people who thought we were crazy back then are talking about fleeing now. Prophecy. The present day fall of Judea, our people, God's people, are getting targeted. It's what I would call an intelligent type of attack, but it's an attack none the same. So what I wanted to do is show the comparison to show you that we are in the present day Judea, where at the same time we're living our lives working under a corporate structure established under a really a Babylonian rule, that they have things in place of extraction, which means at any time they can extract us out of society, do things to us, and none of us are realizing its prophecy. It's a more clean way of ethnic cleansing. What we just went through the last couple of years was a clean way of what? Getting people out of the way until they eventually engage. So what I thought I would do today is show those comparisons to put everything, what this ministry is, in proper perspective. What this ministry is in proper perspective. Everything. From the beginning, leading up into the time I will be before you here in so-called 2022. I noticed y'all probably noticed a few broadcasts ago, a young man from Texas sent me a video of some brothers who were Israelites holding guns outside. It was only nothing but a 10, 15-second clip. And some people may wonder why I actually addressed that. Now, make it clear. Let me make it clear. I've never seen one video from these guys. I've never looked into who these guys are personally. I haven't seen 1 minute lesson of those guys. But the reason why it stood out to me, and that brother from Texas sent it to me, based on a teaching I taught in 2009, where I said at the end of the day, they will be demon Israelites, domestic terrorists. And I said that before there was the internet like it is today. I said that when YouTube first went online. When someone seen me organically teaching on the street and threw that a clip of me breaking down the end and what's going to happen in America. So the reason why that resonated with me is not that I have any interest in what these guys are saying or teaching. It was more prophetic for me, seeing that a long time ago and how surreal that is, looking at it play out in real time while I'm standing here in America. So the things that were shown are happening. So what we're going to do is we're going to parallel now. And I'm going to tell you, folks, it's eerie. The Most High is doing a lot of shaking, and a lot of you probably don't know the history, how close we are to the same history that led to the fall of Judea. We're experiencing the same thing as a people, but don't realize how close we are. So today is the day. Elder Lawya, get Luke 19:41. And I need y'all to write these scriptures down and remember, I discussed this with you, and the Most High gave me an opportunity to come back and talk to you about this. And that in itself is going to confirm in you that the Most High has always worked within the body of Christ, this church. Understand, even though I'm Elder Rawchaa, I'm only a part of the body of Christ. So when you are a part of a body, brothers and sisters, when you're looking into something, and she's looking into something, and another brother's looking into something, and we're all baptized in the same body, you know what happens? Even though you're looking into something, we're all connected. Next day I wake up with an idea, and guess what it is? The idea of, man, look into this, Elder Rawchaa, is because you looked into something, because you were checking something out. That's how the body works. That's how it's connected. But there's another part that I'll discuss once the cameras are off, because we got to talk about what we're going to do with this information now that we know how close we are. It's deep that Deacon Shamar was going into what he was going into, because the body works together in the reverse too. Those are all the good things when you're thinking in the Spirit and operating in the Spirit. It's strong. But if there's nervousness in the body, if there's fear in the body, if there's indecision in the body, we feel that also. if there's consternation in the body. So sometimes we think we're dealing with things as individuals, not realizing that weakness affects the whole. So all of these emotions were going on before we fell in Judea, brothers and sisters. Today we're going to be able to identify all of the spirits that were operating before the fall of Judea. You're going to know what groups fit what individuals fit what. Some of us may even see our own selves in this lesson. But it's not to offend. It's not to point someone out and say that something is wrong with a person. It's so that we can point out areas of strength and strengthen those areas. Also, be able to point out the areas of weaknesses to strengthen those areas. Elder Lawya, Luke 19 and 41. Read it for me, please.
Yes, sir. St. Luke chapter 14, 19, verse number 41.
Yes.
And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying,
Christ beheld the city and wept over Judea. Now just imagine Christ looking at the inner cities today. Chicago, Philadelphia, Compton, LA, Queens, North Philadelphia. All the hubs our people are suffering under right now. Christ seen the city and wept over it. Read.
And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, If thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes.
Come on.
For the days shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee.
Your enemies shall cast a trench about thee. Last couple of years, when they shut things down, the president had to step back of the United States, and each state was being ran by governor. A transition of power right up under your noses without realizing it. A dismantling of a democracy with a calculated effort against Judea, where each state makes its own rule. Well, no. Because of the numbers over here, Louisiana can't travel into Texas. Do you know, folks, that the Hamptons and part of the Hamptons wasn't allowing people from New York to travel into the Hamptons? So like I said earlier, it's a smooth and clean way of trapping without actually telling you you're trapped. The infrastructure has been put in place. Now, if you couple that with gas prices going up exponentially, which drives up the cost of living altogether, because why? It takes trucks to bring your products that needs petrol gas. So that means all the products cost are amended. Why? Because it costs them more to travel. So all the products go up exponentially. Right? And then if you look at the housing market, where they're jacking up the interest rates, where you can only get a low loan now, who are they blocking out of having assets to be able to get something in a short time to move from one place to the next? But that's not it. Under what they call global warming, or that's why I say the modern day Judea, the smooth way of encompassing people. Under global warming or climate change, they're saying that bad people are destroying the earth and we must use less. Where's this going? We finally got to the point where we can drive our cars with real insurance cards. You know what I mean? Hey, let's be real. Everyone knew somebody in the neighborhood that was printing cards. Okay? We finally got an opportunity to get on our feet, finding out what credit is, getting our cards together, doing all these things, and now they're going to claim because of the gas prices and all these things and the fossil fuel issues that we need to now pivot to electric cars. So that means it doesn't matter that one day there will be no gas or petrol for you to purchase. They're pricing us out of the market, or altogether they're going to pivot out of drilling for gas. So even though you got a car that don't work, you're still in debt for that. And no way to travel. Trapped. And you know, the devil like to give you some insight to the future through his Hollywood, The Walking Dead and all these things. But what do you see? You see all these expensive cars all on the road everywhere going nowhere. Christ wept at Judea because he's seen the naivety of our people, not realizing Roman was calculating a plan against them. We're going to break it down today. I mean, folks, a couple of weeks ago, I went and bought a can of soup for my brother. He's living in my mother's house. I mean, you know, my mother, which has passed. I went and bought a can of soup. Can of soup, Progressive soup. Over $6 for a can of soup. I'm talking about a regular can, not those big ones. $6. See, when you see things prophetically and you're looking through the word, you're looking at a can of soup and you understand it's more than you're just looking at a can of soup. Folks, let me get to it. Folks, every Israelite group, let me put it this way. Every Israelite group presently, including those who believe in Christ, can be identified today based on the groups we're going to go over during the time of the fall of Judea. Those in Christ had a certain message. And all the others had a different message that would feed into the Roman machine, that would give the Roman machine the fuel to do what they were planning against us. And sometimes when people send me videos, keep in mind, folks, I don't look at all this stuff. You think I'm looking for some of this stuff we showing you? No. It's somebody, elder, you see this? Check this out. Look at this. But when I see certain things in my spirit, I'll be like, oh, this is what the Most High was talking about there. Don't forget, folks, I'm getting confirmed too. When I say I'm getting confirmed, I don't know everything, but the Most High is confirming his spirit is with the body of Christ to me on a daily basis. Things are sent to me that can confirm something that I've seen in your absence to know the Most High wanted me to see this today. And this is why today I said we have to do this lesson. And what better place to do this lesson than right here in the belly of the beast, the capital of Babylon. Come on, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. Verse number 43. For the days shall come upon thee that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee and compass thee round and keep thee in on every side.
And keep thee in on every side. What better way to keep these people in on every side, brothers and sisters, than to say a plague lives amongst them? The numbers have spiked in this particular area. I'm going to show you what they're going to do. Read.
Verse 44. And shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knowest not the time of thy visitation.
Not one will be left. So what happened in 70 AD, folks? They trenched around Masada without allowing food and water in, which is synonymous to a famine. Starved the people out slowly, and eventually those of our own people began to lose their mind. Let me tell you, folks, when the armies come, it's going to be to check for who's still alive. The enemy have studied us even before 70 AD, and they know when rations dry up, when things get bad, our people pillage, rape, and destroy their own. Instead of doing what? Unifying in order to sustain. Only the righteous who see the long game would think that. Only those who are thinking for today would eventually eat on their own brother's flesh. Elder Lawyer, get Luke 21 and 20.
St. Luke 21, verse 20.
Come on.
And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies.
When you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies. Read.
Then know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
Is what?
Is nigh.
It's near. So obviously, Christ didn't give them this prophecy in order for them to go in panic mode. Just because you see the armies and building the military and building of the police force doesn't mean there will be an immediate frontal engagement. He says, know that the what?
Know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
Now, for those who are reading Christ and understanding Christ, the desolation is near. Now I have to kick things into gear in preparation for when what? There's no more Jerusalem. That don't mean, okay, let me just go there, go here. No. There's some more things that have to get done. There's some more people that have to be saved. There's some more people that the Most High have for the body that would help sustain us. That if we just make moves now, they won't be here to help us. Right? So it's not like it's over, but you understand when they talk about armies and things of that nature, that the desolation is near. Now listen to me clearly, brothers and sisters. MSNBC had a report last week that China have perfected super soldiers. Now, if you believe they're talking about China, you got another thing coming. But they're talking about what? Soldiers that have chemicals in them that can make them do certain things, that they are beyond people and without conscience. People who are being trained as machines, as kamikaze machines on foot, who are also connected to technology. MSNBC, 2 weeks ago I read that. Right now, listen to me clearly, armed forces are now offering $25,000 per person who choose to join the armed forces. Now that might not mean anything to you, but history is replete. The last time something like this was done, it was right before a draft. See, it's our position as watchmen to give y'all some insight to how close we are. But at the same time, the Most High is doing his shaking too. Folks, listen to this clearly. It's nigh, but it's not compassed with armies yet. And those who are wise, like the disciples and those who followed them, will realize what to do when that time comes. And guess what? Brothers and sisters, what to do will not be televised. You're not going to find what to do in a YouTube clip or on Instagram. Finish reading, Elder Lawya.
Yes, sir. Verse 21. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people.
And wrath upon this people. Brothers and sisters. Boy, I guess at that time the Most High gave me what I needed to just leave and flee, because he wanted me to just go in full throttle, not even thinking to look back, to do a work. To do a work. Folks, when I left, I didn't have no intentions on coming back. But now I can understand. Christ is talking to those who believe in him, those who understand the ministry. So where would these people flee? They would actually flee in the same areas where the ministry was established, where there was refuge for the family in Christ. And that's when it began to come around full circle. While we were all around the world, while we're baptizing in different areas. Because it's not going to be where it's going to be just the gathering of Christ Church and people getting on planes and just flying someplace. No, 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 no. Refuge, a body, a family, an extension of ourselves had to be established. This is what y'all work for. This is what we all prayed for. An extension of ourselves through Christ. Hope beyond the hope we can prepare for ourselves. And the people that are left are going to go through turmoil. And the turmoil, to some degree, has already begun. Elder Lawya.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to Deuteronomy 28 to show you that this prophecy was shown to Moses. Don't forget, Moses wasn't just shown the Roman Empire. Moses and Esdras and the prophets were shown the end. Read it for me, Elder Lawya.
Yes, sir. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse number 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst.
In hunger and in thirst, read.
And in nakedness.
And in what?
And in nakedness.
And in nakedness. Hunger, thirst, that's a famine. And in nakedness, clothing. Folks, who would have known? Who would have known? One of the brothers who traveled with us overseas had a wife from Mexico. His name is Elder Rawchaa. The Most High knew one day with the Lord is 1,000 years. He was putting all the pieces in place. All of you, I believe, are a part of those pieces. A lot of people out there are part of those pieces and don't know it yet. Only for him to come back. And the family is looking at him flee, huh? Yeah, you lost your job. Yeah, look, you could have been this and been that. And he just looked at him. It's like, listen, it is what it is. I'm just following the church. I believe in the elder. I've traveled around with him, and guess what? I know that elder, that brother, is who I knew he was. He's a fervent believer and a warrior for Christ. And that's what he told his family. I've been around him. See, there's something to be said when you're overseas and some kids are coming off a plane because they heard a YouTube video. People that you don't even know. But then they call you out of nowhere and say, yeah, Elder, I seen you on YouTube. I'm like, boy, what's wrong with you? 21 years old with another young girl. 18, 19 years old. They're adults, but imagine going into another country with nothing. Because you believe some guy you never met or talked to on a video, and you believe that he was a servant of God. So I'm like, oh my goodness, if something happened to these kids, everything is over. How many people you know out of nowhere would say, boy, get your behind on the plane. I'm in Alexandria right now. Meet me there. And when you get there, an apartment is waiting for you, even though I didn't know you. food, water, provisions. And I'm like, the Most High sent you, it must be my duty to teach you. What's wrong with you, boy? What make you think, where's your family? What make you think you can get up and just go that like that? Your family gonna worry about you. You know what's going on in the Middle East? He says, Elder, I've been following your videos this long, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I done changed my life, and to make sure I changed my life, I made sure I got a connecting flight from Amsterdam to where you are, because I heard that you was in some area. I was trying to see where you were. I'm like, to Amsterdam? He says, yeah, Elder. That's where the legal weed is. And we just wanted to do it one more time before y'all baptize us. I couldn't help but laugh. I'm like, boy, didn't know anything about this young man. Micah Allah, Maestro, the music man that ended up doing all the music for our church. That's how I met him. Didn't know him from music. That's what I know him for. But who sows into a stranger you don't know? He's down there in front of the shisha shop, doing the moonwalk and popping and all. I'm like, brother, what does inconspicuous mean to you? To my elder, I'm just trying to get my, I got to stay in shape. I'm like, boy, you're going to get us destroyed here. And then one day I heard him playing the music on the piano. I'm like, what's going on here? He didn't know that I ever sung or wrote songs. And in 15 minutes, hearing this brother play the piano, Zion was finished. The song to Zion was finished. Why am I putting this out to y'all like this? Because y'all don't understand how organic the Spirit works and how the Most High bring people together. But it takes that first level of faith that I talked about that starts with your indecision, that fork in the road. Which way do I go? And choosing the right place so that you can be there for your family. That's one of many stories. The same time should come. He was with us. His family thought that he was crazy. But right now, I'm coming around full circle. We was in the elders meeting the other day, and Shacum says, Elder, we did it. I say, we did what? We're in Mexico now, me and my wife. We got the farm, we got the fruit, we got the food, we got the animals. And you know where that came from? Elder, I don't know what I'm going to do. We're working in a hospital. They're about to shut the hospitals down. I think I'm just going to go to Mexico for a moment. And I said, you know what? You go there. And I'm going to send you money. I'm going to send you money. Do what you got to do there. And now he has a farm for the church. So if something happens, listen. So if someone had to go to Mexico, you can be provided for like I provided for others. And then through that, you'll be able to one day set up something to provide for others. That's what a body is about. And that's how I'm understanding how this thing went down in Judea. It was through them sowing in the ministry, being like Christ, giving our people an opportunity. That spirit in of itself helped save our nation. But there's another spirit. There's another spirit out there who believe that this ministry or teaching the Bible is about just knowing the Bible and being able to break other people down and break down scripture. Vanity and pride. not realizing that the Bible in of itself is a source for life. If we're viewing it right. Let's read it, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. Deuteronomy 28, verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
That happened in slavery. Read on.
The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth.
As swift as the eagle flieth. Esau, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle. Read.
A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
Come on.
A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat of the fruit of thy cattle, and of the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed. Which also shall not leave thee neither corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee.
Now, this is usually going to be for those, I'm speaking of in particular, eating their own children's flesh, raping and pillaging one another. These are going to be for those who didn't listen. When they were told the time was near, they scoffed at it. It ain't going to happen. Who you think you is? People are so busy, they're so busy looking at man. They don't understand when the Most High is actually trying to help them through a man or through that man. Elder Rawchaa, let's go to the book of Josephus real quick.
Yes, sir.
The book of Josephus, War of the Jews, the 6th chapter, the 5th part, in the 3rd verse. We're going to show you and parallel the fall of Judea and compare it to our present time, so that y'all know beyond any shadow of a doubt we're here. When it says the fall of Judea, it's talking about the fall of the 12 tribes of Israel now throughout the 4 corners of the earth. They've isolated us. They've found us. They've put us all in a medical database. They know our genome. That's all they needed to do. This is why every place the Roman Empire colonizes, they set up what? A church and a hospital. Why a hospital in particular? It says, cursed shall y'all be coming into the earth, and cursed shall be when you leave the earth. That's when a person is born and when they die. That at those integral points of our lives, the Roman Empire are intricately intertwined with our birth and our death, and all the health in between. So for the sake of health, they would set up a system in which our people would be dependent on them to deliver a baby or to clean up a body and all these things before laying them down. So that means they would have power or be intertwined with every individual that they have colonized by default of the system they have set up. So that's just the hospital part of it. But then the religious part of it, the indoctrination to accept your slavery. You put these two together, and there's no escaping without a phenomenon. So here, we're going to go into the war of the Jews. We're going to go into the Josephus to show you how close we are. And I'm going to tell you, folks, as far as I'm concerned right now, it's a blessing. I'm not even into the thing where everyone should be able to go and everyone should be able to make it and all that. It's up to each individual, and I'm going to talk about that. Because right now, I'm seeing more all over the earth than those I left with. Already it's a blessing. This is way more that we can give as a testimony to Christ for this work than I've ever expected. Already, all of these people all over the earth who believe in Christ. But I understand wholeheartedly, brothers and sisters, that it's ye that endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. It's going to get tough. Elder Lawya, let's read it in the War of the Jews.
Yes, sir. Wars of the Jews, Book 6, Chapter 5, Paragraph 3.
Now, this is when Vespasian and his son Titus began to go against our people. The Roman Empire in Judea. Against Judea. Read.
Thus were the miserable people persuaded by these deceivers, and such as belied God himself, while they did not attend nor give credit to the signs that were so evident and did so plainly foretell their future desolation.
Now, the Most High gave signs in the heavens, which confirmed Christ's words, brothers and sisters, that was telling the people, based on these signs, eventually when it breaks down, you'll need to go into these different areas. But there were deceivers in the land at the same time, doing what? Dissuading the people. They were coming in and saying all types of evil against Christ's warning. Y'all believe that man? Listen, we don't have to go anywhere. And they were given what? Examples out of Scripture to a lot of our people to confirm their stance on standing right there while the Romans crushed Judea. It's going to tell you. Deceivers. Now, folks, these deceivers weren't the deceivers of the Gentiles. These were Israelite men of renown, those of respected position, who was questioning Christ's prophecy, even Moses' prophecy, and through their eloquent speaking, deceiving the people and having them sit pat. Read.
But like men infatuated, without either eyes to see or minds to consider, did not regard the denunciations that God made to them. Thus there was a star resembling a sword which stood over the city.
Look at that. The Most High had the stars, who are the angels, form in the sky a sword. There was a sword formed in the sky, like you see the Big Dipper? No, the stars came together and formed a Roman sword. Now, if that's not an omen or what you would call a warning, Read.
Thus there was a star resembling a sword, which stood over the city, and a comet that continued a whole year.
Come on.
Thus also before the Jews' rebellion, and before those commotions which preceded the war, when the people were come in great crowds to the feast of unleavened bread on the 8th day of the month Xanthicus. And at the 9th hour of the night, so great a light shone round the altar in the holy house, that it appeared to be bright daytime, which light lasted for half an hour.
At Passover, they would all see a light at night that turned night into day during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So obviously these were Israelites seeing all the signs and not doing anything. Without doing anything. All praises be to the Most High. I tell you this, regardless of what happens or what goes down within the earth, I know when a brother, sister somehow get to Mexico, they have refuge and food. If they were to go into Africa, they're going to have refuge and food. If they were to fall into parts of Europe, whatever the case is, hey, if they go into Egypt, they'll have refuge and food. If they go into Zimbabwe, they have refuge and food. Y'all wouldn't believe some of these phone calls I got. I get a call 2 in the morning. Hey, yeah, Elder, I'm in Rome. I'm overseas. You're where, young man? I'm in Rome. See, y'all, Elder Lawya, I've forgotten all the stories, folks. What the Hades are you doing in Rome, brother? I was trying to get into this country, and they turned me back and gave me a one-way ticket, and they told me I can get on the plane, and the only plane that was going out at that time, if I didn't want to get arrested, was Rome. I said, don't worry about it, brother. You're right. Am I making this stuff up? Let me see. That's why y'all don't know the experience. If I was to chronologize these experiences, y'all will understand how much faith was built in understanding how the Most High can give us answers and help us through certain things that most people would give up already. I said, don't worry about it. I'll call you back in a couple of minutes. It so happened I baptized people over in England. So I make a call in England and say, hey, we have a situation. Now this was before Blog Talk. This was before Peace FM, before I met God or anything, before all that. In England. I make a phone call and Josh says, Elder, I know what we can do. There's a train that goes from Rome to here and we can pick them up on the train. But the problem was, guess what? He only had 22 cents. Now, these are the things we're maneuvering all over the earth. But if it wasn't for the ministry being taught, he would have no way. He would have been arrested in the country that turned him back. Don't you know we worked it out? He picked some money somewhere at Western Union. And not only that, he didn't get coach. He got like the first class on the plane where he can sleep. And they brought him food on a silver tray. All the way until he met his brethren. And when the brethren embraced him who never knew him from anywhere, they only knew him from my word saying, I vouch for him. Put their money together and placed that brother in an apartment. Man, we can have these all night. A matter of fact, I'm going to make sure this tabernacle, I'm going to be amongst the body, and we're going to just sit around a campfire, and I'm going to tell you, word is born. We're going to talk. So here's the signs that's going on, and I'm seeing like, oh, the Most High was cold. He got us fleeing, but hold up. He have us setting up ministries. He's seeing something greater than me. I'm just going as the Spirit is taking me, but we are actually setting up refuge. Now I understand when Christ told the people to flee that there would be a place for them based on the ministry that was established through the apostles. There's no way I could have thought of any of this. I'm operating as the Spirit moved me to do something. But the Most High sets up what he needs for his people. Read on, Elder Lawyer.
It says here, the light seemed to be a good sign to the unskillful, but was so interpreted by the sacred scribes as to portend these events that followed immediately upon it. At the same festival also a heifer, as she was led by the high priest to be sacrificed, brought forth a lamb in the midst of the temple. Moreover, the eastern gate of the inner court of the temple, which was of brass and vastly heavy, and had been with difficulty shut by 20 men, and rested upon its bases armed with iron, had its bolts fastened very deep into the firm floor, which was there made of one entire stone, was seen to be opened of its own accord about the 6th hour of the night. Now those that kept watch in the temple came hereupon running to the captain of the temple, and told him of it, who then came up thither, and without great difficulty was able to shut the gate again. This also appeared to be to the vulgar a very happy prodigy, as if God did thereby open them the gate of happiness. But the men of learning understood it, that the security of the holy house was dissolved.
Look at that. Those who had understanding knew what it was. Others without the understanding seen it as something good. The Most High gave signs over and over and over and over again. But the people, even those who claim to know Christ and know God and know they were Israel, didn't take heed to these signs. Now, what we're going to do real quick, because there's many signs, but eventually the Most High would allow the eagle Rome to come against those who didn't listen. Right? But before we go there, Elder Lawyer, I would like to talk about some of the rebels and some of the spirit that was actually in the city amongst our people. In the city amongst our people. Who knew the truth? Elder Lawyer, I need you to go to Wars of the Jews, the 2nd chapter, 254 to 257, the Josephus. Write them down, because y'all going to see there's nothing new under the sun. There is nothing new under the sun. Let's read it, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir.
Take your time. It's
2 and 54, right?
2. It says 2
and 254.
254.
Yes, sir.
254 to 257.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So this is Wars of the Jews, book 2, verse number 254. When the country was purged of these, there sprang up another sort of robbers in Jerusalem,
There sprang up robbers in Jerusalem.
which were called Sicarii.
Which was called what?
Which were called Sicarii.
Which were called Sicarii. Now, mind you, Christ says he's at the porter of the door. And anybody that don't come in that straight gate is a what? A thief and a robber. Y'all don't understand what's going on, brethren. There's nothing new under the sun. The same spirits are operating, taking rogue spirits, unbelievers, and antichrist, and revealing the truth so that you can be confirmed that you're standing on solid ground, brothers and sisters. Read it again.
When the country was purged of these, there sprang up another sort of robbers in Jerusalem, which were called Sicarii.
Which were called Sicarii. Were they for our people? Were they a benefit for God's ministry? Were they there to save and help us from the Romans? Or were they sent by the devil to help the Romans? Read it.
Who slew men in the daytime, and in the midst of the city. This they did chiefly at the festivals, when they mingled themselves among the multitude.
So they would come amongst us, like us, but was looking to rob, pillage, and kill us. People have to stop getting fascinated with everyone who pick up the Bible and read it. Even Christ says, you shall know them by their works, by their fruit. Read.
And concealed daggers under their garments, with which they stabbed those that were their enemies.
They were known to take weapons to come against those who they felt would oppose them. This was before the modern day automatic or handgun. Same time Jerusalem is falling and being destroyed, this activity was going on back then. You're going to tell me the Bible isn't true when it says there's nothing new under the sun? And I know to a lot of you, that's shocked that y'all even see it. Like, oh, that's history. We've been read the history of these Vangros. That was in that spirit back then. Finish reading, Elder Lawya.
And when any fell down dead, the murderers became part of those that had indignation against them, by which means they appeared persons of such reputation that they could by no means be discovered. The first man who was slain by them was Jonathan the high priest, after whose death many were slain every day, while the fair men were in of being so served, was more afflicting the calamity itself.
They began to come after and kill the priest of God. Some of our people, they get so fascinated with what they see and don't do any research and understand that the Most High has given them signs. Not just signs in the heavens, but signs amongst Israel in of itself. That the same spirits that was working back then to destroy Judea will be working now for those who can see. Go ahead, Elder.
And while everybody expected death every hour, as men do in war, so were men obliged to look before them and to take notice of their enemies at a great distance. Nor if their friends were coming to them, durst they trust them any longer. But in the midst of their suspicions and guarding themselves, they were slain. Such was the celebrity of the plotters against them, and so cunning was their contrivance.
Look at that. Now, just by a show of hands, who knew that Sakari was the robbers who were destroying our people in 70 AD? Okay, we got some sharp ones up in here. All right. Now, personally, like I said, myself, I don't look at any videos of no Israelites or anything, because everything they taught, everything they saying, I said that in 92, 93. I can do all their teachings and tell them, oh, excuse me, that false breakdown you're doing, here's 2 scriptures you're missing. But when I see somebody brandishing something, that's a sign. Especially at a time where the whole world right now is talking about massacres. Speaking of guns and this, that, and the other. I'm one of those who would have been back then, and when I seen that light at night, that's a sign. So based on, that was confirmation to me. I didn't know who the groups were, but when I seen that happening, I knew that was the sign. That's history. That's history. What are we seeing? We're seeing those that once the cities are closed, who would actually pillage and destroy those of our people who are left. Because it happened before. And people are talking about, well, hold up, Elder, what about self-defense? Let me tell you, I've been teaching on streets for years. It'd be wrong to tell someone that they cannot defend themselves with their constitutional protection. But Christ says what? I send you out as sheep among wolves, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Just because you have protection doesn't mean the enemy should see your protection. You're playing into a narrative that's going to work counter to your so-called claimed objective. The objective when you open the Bible is to save souls. It's to bring people to the Almighty. But I wanted y'all to know that's history. History, brothers and sisters. Elder Lawya, we're going to finish up soon, but I need you to get this for me.
Yes, sir.
I need you to get War of the Jews, where the Romans sacked Jerusalem. The 6th chapter, the 8th through the 9th verse. 8 through 9, 1 through 3 after that.
Okay, this is Wars of the Jews.
Yep.
You said book 6.
Yeah, War of the Jews, 6, 8 through 9.
6, 8 through 9.
Yeah, we were there already.
Okay.
But we stopped at 5.3. Go to 6, where it says 8 through 9.
Okay.
See it here?
Yes, sir. I see.
You got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
All right. Wars of the Jews, book 8, verse number 6.
There you go. Come on.
For the war had laid all signs of beauty quite waste, nor if anyone that had known the place before had come on a sudden to it now, would have known it again.
Come on.
But though he were at the city itself, yet he would have inquired for it notwithstanding. Now the banks were finished, and afforded a foundation for fear, both to the Romans and to the Jews. For the Jews expected that the city would be taken, unless they could burn those banks, as did the Romans expect that. If they were once burnt down, they should never be able to take it.
Come on.
For there was a mighty scarcity of materials, and the bodies of the soldiers began to fail with such hard labors, as did their souls faint with so many instances of ill success. Nay, the very calamities themselves that were in the city proved a greater discouragement to the Romans than to those within the city. For they found the fighting men of the Jews to be not able at all not mollified among such their sore afflictions, while they had themselves perpetually less and less of hopes of success, and their banks were forced to yield to the stratagems of the enemy, their engines to the firmness of their wall, and their closest fights to the boldness of their attack. And what was their greatest discouragement at all, or of all? They found the Jews' courageous souls to be superior to the multitude of the miseries they were under by the sedition, their famine, and the war itself, insomuch that they were ready to imagine that the violence of their attacks was invincible, and the alacrity they showed would not be discouraged by their calamities. For what would not be those able to bear it, if they should be fortunate, who turned their very misfortunes to the improvement of their valor? These considerations made the Romans keep a stronger guard about their banks than they formerly had done. But now
go ahead, keep on.
Verse 15. But now John and his party took care of securing themselves afterward, even in case this wall should be thrown down, and fell to their work before the battering rams were brought against them. Yet they did not compass what they endeavored to do. But as they were gone out with their torches, they came back under great discouragement before they came near to the banks. And the reason were these, that in the first place their conduct did not seem to be unanimous, but they went out in distinct parties and at distinct intervals, and after a slow manner and timorously, and to say in all a word without a Jewish courage, for they were now defective in what is peculiar to our nation, and that is boldness, and violence of assault, and in running upon the enemy altogether, and in preserving in what they go about, though they do not find it, or do not at first succeed in it, but they now went out with a more languid manner than usual, and at the same time found the Romans set in array, and more courageous than ordinary, and that they guarded their banks with their bodies and their entire armor, and this to such a degree on all sides that they left no room for the fire to get among them. And every one of their souls was in such good courage that they would sooner die than desert their ranks. For besides their notion that all their hopes were cut off, in case their works were once burnt, the soldiers were greatly ashamed that subtlety should be quite too hard for courage, madness for armor, multitude for skill, and Jews for Romans.
Elder Lawya, let's go to War of the Jews 5 and 10. 5, part 10. Second verse.
Wars of the Jews 5, book number, chapter 10.
And part 2, which it talks about the starvation that was within the walls.
Yes, sir. It says here, but as for the richer sort, it proved all one to them whether they stayed in the city or attempted to get out of it.
Come on.
For they were equally destroyed in both cases.
So what happened was Rome, as you know, surrounded Masada. Incompetence, no food or no water. So we started pillaging one another to the degree where there was no strength left amongst us, so that now the Romans could take our people all together. Now, mind you, folks, this is not just going to happen to our people. It's going to happen to all the poor within our communities. But to the Romans, they'll just be what? Collateral damage. Read on.
But as for the richer sort, it proved all to them one to them whether they stayed in the city or attempted to get out of it. for they were equally destroyed in both cases. For every such person was put to death under this pretense, that they were going to desert, but in reality, that the robbers might get what they had. The madness of the seditious did also increase together with their famine, and both those miseries were every day inflamed more and more. For there was no corn which anywhere appeared publicly, but the robbers came running into and searched men's private houses, and then if they found any, they tormented them because they had denied they had any. And if they found none, they tormented them worse because they supposed they had more carefully concealed it. The indication made use of whether they had any or not was taken from the bodies of these miserable wretches, which if they were in good case, they supposed they were in want at all, and no want at all of food. But if they were wasted away, they walked off without searching any farther. Nor did they think it proper to kill such as these.
Now, y'all need to imagine this, folks, where because of certain laws, no one can go in or out of the city or can travel. But in the midst of that, some people have stored resources for their family that others know about. Then you have the robbers who, by default, because the government have taken the guns from the law-abiding citizens, the only people with weapons who become the de facto army against the righteous are the criminals. So if you're cut off, compass roundabout with no way out, you're now at the behest of these criminals running with guns. And that's, guess what, folks? This is the model that they're using in our present time. They know that if any laws are passed, those laws don't affect the criminals or those who have guns and not going to give them up. It affects those who are law-abiding. It affects these people from being able to get protection from the criminal. It's going to be an insurrection within these cities. Now, Wisdom of Solomon, Elder Lawya. I mean, not wisdom, Wars of the Jews, 4, 7, and 2. Get that real quick? And then we're going to go and show you in the book of Acts and all that, the rebels and all that that was pointed out in Scripture. Then we're going to leave it with what we need to do according to Christ. Now that we understand what this earth and what God's people are up against. War of the Jews, 4, 7. Let's get it.
Yes, sir. Wars of the Jews, 4 verse 7.
Come on.
And now the multitude were going to rise against them already, for Ananus, the ancient of the high priest, persuaded them to it. Not sure if that's not the one.
This is one.
All right.
You wrote it down.
Yes, sir. All right. What section you at?
See down here? Right here.
4, 7. Okay.
You got it? All right.
Wars of the Jews.
Your mic? I think it's good now. Is this mic good? All right, great. One moment. Let's switch out his mic real quick. Thank you. I appreciate it, sir. The water.
Wars of the Jews, Book 4, Chapter 7, Paragraph 2.
Yep.
And now a fourth misfortune arose in order to bring our nation to destruction.
In order to bring our nation, the fall of Judea, to destruction. What happened?
There was a fortress of very great strength not far from Jerusalem, which had been built by our ancient kings, both as a repository for their effects and hazards of war, and for the preservation of their bodies at the same time.
Okay. Thank you.
It says, it is called Masada. Those that were called Sakari had taken possession of it formerly.
Read it again.
Those that were called Sakari had taken possession of it formerly.
Come on.
But at this time they overran the neighboring countries, aiming only to procure to themselves necessaries.
Now, why are we going in here? You have to realize, folks, it wasn't just any regular people robbing our people once there was no resources to be had. It wasn't the white man. The white man just sat back patiently, knowing the nature of some of our people who claim to believe in God. They're like, listen, you leave them alone long enough by themselves, and they'll turn on each other. There's this crazy group out there who's being incentivized and all that, with weapons and with this, running around like a rogue gang, that if you're trapped in with these people, they'll do what? They'll seek you as prey. Now imagine, you have to understand when certain things are out there that are signs. When you hear stuff like, in the midst of a presidential race, you hear things being said, which was first echoed in the chambers of Congress and the Senate, where you think it's talking about organic activists are making statements. Present day Judea. When you hear stuff like, defund the police, to you, that's nothing. To you, it's, yeah, we don't need no more George Floyds. But no, to them, it's Masada. Let the police and let everybody back out so that they can kill each other. But it's more technological now. It's more the technology. They don't need no more brothers and sisters for them to actually have an army around you. In a time where, what we talked about in 2009, where you have satellites around the earth that can track every person, with everyone conveniently volunteering to be tracked. So that's why I said, you know what? Hey, with our church, we're going to have that too. I'm gonna go and get them made out of leather, signal blockers, cell blocks, and lap locks. And we'll just own that, and so we can put our devices in, and guess what? Hey, satellite phones. Hold up. I need to talk about this when the camera's off. But let's talk about the rebels. They're already operating in our system, and the government powers know who they are. People who are rogue. Not that they are paid by government, but they're so rogue they can be used nonetheless. Now we're going to round it up to show you that these happened during the time of Christ. Elder Lawya, I need you to go to, real quick, some of what's in the book of Acts, real quick. Acts 5 and 36. Yes, sir. Acts 21 and 38.
Yes, sir. The book of Acts, chapter 5, verse number, I'll start at 35.
Yes.
In fact, I'll start up.
Now, Matthew 24 and 11, it tells us about there will be many false prophets in those days. right? A lot of people didn't know, weren't able to quantify what Christ was talking about. He was talking about signs of the end. How would you identify this form of false prophet he was talking about and related to our current time? We're going to show you. Elder Lawya, get Acts 5 and 36, read.
Yes, sir. I'll start at 34.
34, come on.
Acts 5 and 34. Then stood there one up in the council, a Pharisee named Gamaliel, a doctor of the law, had in reputation among all the people, and commanded to put the apostles forth a little space, and said unto them, Ye men of Israel, take heed to yourselves what ye intend to do as touching these men.
Come on.
For before these days rose up Theudas, boasting himself to be somebody.
Theudas, boasting himself to be someone. Now, this is another rebel that we can read in the book of Antiquity of the Jews, the 20th chapter. The same story. These stories we read in the book of Acts are recorded in Jewish history to confirm that these are historical events that we would see in our time to know how close we are to the fall of Judea or the Romans pressing upon us. Read.
For before these days rose up Theudas, boasting himself to be somebody, to whom a number of men, about 400, joined themselves, who was slain, and all as many as obeyed him were scattered and brought to naught.
Look at that. These were rebels who came together saying there was Israel, running around with arms and all that, saying we're going to defend our stance against you, and the Romans crushed them. Why? Because they was deemed during that time a threat to the empire as domestic terrorists. There's nothing new under the sun. A lot of people, you can have young people who are impressionable, might see that as some type of might or power. If you see Grandmaster J, the NFAC, we're not effing around and all this other stuff. There's these 70 exploitation groups that are being created by the system. Some young guy, impressionable, might look at that and say, yeah, man, I want to join that. And that's what the power structure are banking on. You sitting there reading the Bible, yeah, the white man, this, that, and the other, and then somebody sitting there with something on his shoulder. There's going to be a young boy going to come up there and say, man, can I be a part of that? That looks fun. And none of you will know anything to the wise who are reading the Bible do not realize that happened before. Where 400 men joined to people like that and were destroyed by the Roman Empire. Now, some people ask, well, Elder, why do you put things out there like that? Well, first, I was shown it in 2009 before there was YouTube and all this other stuff. Second of all, I want to make sure it's verbally documented what an antichrist act looks like. So that when the demonization comes down the line, they can't say that the gathering of Christ Church didn't warn everyone concerning this time, including those who knew they were Israel. History is replete. And understand, they want people carrying arms. They want people showing an aggressive front so that they can have what? They can have the excuse to do what? To engage. That gives them cause. So I put it out there to say what? This needs to be documented. Because I know it's not just our people looking at this. Everyone is looking at online. Even law enforcement. Law enforcement, when there's a crime, they go online first and pull up someone's what? Profile. Your Instagram or your Facebook and find out who you talked to last. So I put it out there so it's documented that I know what time we're in. And when you see people brandishing and doing all those things at the same time the government is talking about it, it's a sign that we're near the fall of Judea. That's a sign. Thaddeus. Elder Lawya, let's now get Acts 21 and 38.
Yes, sir. Before that, I'll read one more verse here in Acts 5,
okay.
37.
Yeah.
After this man rose up Judas of Galilee in the day of the taxing, and drew away much people after him. He also perished, and all, even as many as obeyed him, were dispersed.
So just because somebody can speak and teach and you can get somebody to follow you doesn't mean it's right. The intentions for this word is Christ's gospel. It's not to stand in military operation of an empire God set up and only Christ can take down. I need y'all to understand this. And I'm saying this because some people you're young. You can be impressionable and get impressed by that and fall through the folly of men. So now, what are we to do, understand at the time we're in? There's a few things I wanted to say, just like I said, well, if I want to come to these churches, I'm going to the East Coast first, then the Midwest, and then we're going to go to the West Coast. I'm like, okay, we're living back during Paul's time or the apostles' time. They would write letters as a specific message to the church based on what that particular church was going through. But we have technology today. I'm like, what would Paul do? What would the apostles do? They would address each church. Before it's all over in the fall of Judea, we have to address each church. We have to let you know. We have to talk to you and tell you, brothers and sisters, it's going to come a time where there's going to be a lockdown. And guess what? With that lockdown, there will be one lockdown that will come. It might not be this year or it might not be next year. But that lockdown a few years ago was a test. It's going to come a time where they're going to get us used to lockdowns. And then at one point, lockdowns will be permanent. What is that? That's the fall of Masada. Masada was just what? A permanent lockdown where no one can go out. No food, no water, no resources. And if you tried to go out, it was breaking the law. Or you were killed for going out of bounds. So I know a lot of you asking, well, Elder Rawchaa, well, what are we to do? And this is why I gave you some examples of what happened in your absence before we became a church here. That we walked through faith and with each day was guided by the Almighty, where He provided for us and showed us the way. And it doesn't matter the circumstances, there were always answers because we were walking in the faith to do His will. Started off without purse or script, left with nothing, and came back with more than we've ever had by serving God. And it's through that faith that we've seen and we know how that faith works. It's going to guide us. But I'm going to ask you, we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. But you're going to have to trust us. And I said, if the apostles want to go out, what would they tell the people? Or we have to talk to each church before the shutdowns. Now everybody talking about food shortages. And I'm sitting there tapping my foot like, okay, welcome to the party. No one recognized how close we are to something happening until what? Until the media says it. Now you got family members and others who was opposing everything you were trying to tell them, saying, well, yeah, now, yeah, I'm seeing what you're saying now. What, yeah. Oh, you didn't listen when God was telling you. You have more position and trust in a power structure that have always destroyed you than your own family member who's trying to save you. And when they confirm it's a food shortage, now you can come back because the enemy, Rome, has confirmed it, and now we're in agreement. We're in agreement. Our people. Matthew 25, Elder Lawya. This is for the church. I just wanted to show how close we are to the fall of Judea. But this today is Christ's message and what I'm teaching for those who are baptized and are within this church. And let me say this. When it's time to do certain things, I'm going to talk more when the cameras go off. The guidance will be through leadership. One thing about this ministry, we have never have done anything in this church through the guidance or through the concerns of those who are acting strictly out of fear. A person who's paranoid or fearful are dangerous. So if you hear somebody talking about, hey, I don't know what's going on with, I know Elder talking about Leon, but man, can't you see the news and what's going on, man? It's like, man, it seems like they dragging their foot. That's the enemy. Now I'm going to give y'all some examples when the camera's off of people who went forward without leadership. Okay? and you know, it didn't end right. And it hurt, and those things hurt. When someone opposed themselves, when they feel that they're running from a lion, like the scriptures say, but run into a bear. What's wrong with being guided in areas that are dark for you or you can't see clearly for? That's what leadership is for. Elder Lawya, let's read Matthew 25, and let's start at the first verse.
Yes, sir. St. Matthew chapter 25, verse 1. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins.
This is what we're preparing for, brothers and sisters. This is for the church. This is not Elder Rawchaa saying this. This is Christ speaking to you. And you notice I always revert back to that fork in the road, that moment where I wanted to give up. I always revert back to there. The Most High always remind me of that. You know what? I'm looking around and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. We're going to all have struggles as people. But I'm glad Zionist shook me up and slapped me up. Because you know what? As far as I'm concerned, that was a selfish decision I was thinking about. I wasn't thinking about what I knew that could help other people. I was thinking about what I was going through. I was thinking about what people thought of me. I was thinking about how others thought of me. I was thinking about I wasn't worthy, all this other stuff, and if I do it, there's no appreciation. Anyway, that was the devil. Because I'm sure, and I know that it's nothing more the enemy would have liked but for me to sit down and do nothing. So I'm glad Christ had someone there to shake me, because what? What do I have to complain about? Huh? Nothing. Christ says, listen, if you pick up your plow and put it down, you're not worthy of my kingdom. I'm going all the way. I'm not halfway. I'm going all the way to the crucifix. Because without finishing, Israel is nothing. The prophecies are unfulfilled. The servant is not more worthy than his master. Know that I've suffered these things. You're going to go through trials and tribulations too, and it ain't going to be all good in this truth. It's not all good. The pain comes with it too. He was whipped. We're whipped. He was lied on. We're lied on. So the question is, who is Christ? How do I know I'm in Christ and this walk I'm walking will lead me to safety? And this is a message for the church. Whenever you feel in confusion, doubt, open up Matthew 25. And it's like, now that I've thought about it, I'm laughing and looking at that fork in the road I went through and was like, what choice did I have to the contrary? If I'm not doing this, what am I doing? Understanding once you begin to build a work in Christ, that like Paul says, one becomes a prisoner to it. Elder Lawya, read for me, please.
Yes, sir. St. Matthew 25, verse 1. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish.
5 were wise, and 5 were foolish. They all had the same baptism, the same walk, the same knowledge, with the same opportunity. And guess what? Listen to me clearly. Christ chose the 10 virgins. Every individual in this church, Elder Rawchaa didn't choose you. Christ did. God did. Always remember that. The Most High used me to plant a seed. Now, I can see someone now and seeing me put a seed in the dirt. And when the rain comes and the sun comes, which is from God, which is from the Most High, I can see me at the end when that tree bear fruit, standing in front of that tree saying, check out my tree. Is that really my tree, or did I just put a seed in the ground? It's the Most High that shined on that tree. It's the Most High that rained on that tree and brought forth food so that we can all eat. So when I check out these scriptures about the 10 virgins, you have to understand, brothers and sisters, I understand why the Most High had me at that moment, that life-changing moment. It's times like this that lets me realize, because what? The times where I had nothing, onions and potatoes to eat, but people would have never known that I was starving and that we would have tea bags we have to share overseas where the tea was made, and we would take the tea bags and put it in the refrigerator and use it again for more tea to share amongst the brethren. But even through the bad times, now that I look at this journey, I understand. I understood that moment. And now I understand that I was one of these and am one of these 10 virgins. All of us are. I'm no different than you. I'm one of these 10. Let's read it.
Verse 3, they that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps.
See? Because one can run, but what happens when you're out of gas? So I got to understand that, okay, I got to space this stuff out because this journey is a marathon. And the righteous do what? They make sure they do what they can to trim their lamps, make sure they have enough oil for the journey. Now, they all started with the same amount. They started with the truth. But some understood the marathon. Read.
While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept.
There it is. There's things that I was hoping to see by this time in the truth, and we're still here. As far as I'm concerned, we can be here another 20 years. Who knows? I thought we would be on the journey already. So why what? Why Christ tarried, instead of appreciating the fact that Christ gave us more time, we begin to think that what? He's taking his time. We're going to stay in this condition forever. Instead of being grateful for the time he's given us, it's almost to a degree where we're blaming him for not bringing forth prophecy and doing things in our time. We're starting to blame God now. And we become stagnant. We start losing focus. We forget the love we had and the passion we had when the Most High first revealed that we are the children of God. We tend to forget that. Not realizing, like I said earlier, one day with the Lord is 1,000 years. To him, he just gave you that revelation 10 seconds ago. Come on.
Verse 6, and at midnight there was a cry made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him.
Go ye out to meet him. Read.
Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, give us your oil.
Oh, well, let me find the elders. Let me find the brethren now. I know it. But you have to realize when you're on this journey, you're going. You're looking forward. You're not looking back. Through all your imperfections, through all anything, you have to be there from Sabbath to Sabbath, and you must become Christ. When I say become Christ, it's in this chapter. Our journey to the kingdom is synonymous to Christ's journey to the crucifix. Understand how deep that is. When we were called and baptized, the Most High made an agreement or an oath with us to fulfill a promise that was given to our fathers. But that promise comes through his Son, who had to do what? Who had to die and be resurrected. There was no going back. The crucifix is the mission. That means to the death. That's why I said, I don't know what I was thinking in the beginning, because there's no place to go anyway. There's fire on one side and water on the other, and the power is so narrow that only one man can make it at a time. So it was like I'm standing there, and Christ is like, what you going to do? You going to serve me? Because you know what's out there. You had 5 wise and 5 foolish. The 5 wise got enough oil to make the whole journey. The foolish don't understand. They don't understand that when you were called to the whole journey. Read it.
And the foolish said unto the wise, give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out.
Come on.
But the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves.
Listen, you got to go back. You know where I got it from. Go back there, because I only have enough to make it on this journey. Read.
In verse 10, and while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, verily I say unto you, I know you not.
I what?
I know you not.
I know you not. Now, did he know them? All 10, yes. But it wasn't that Christ forgot the 5 foolish. Eventually, the 5 foolish forgot him. And what comes with the mission is finishing. This is for the church, because at the very end it breaks down. Christ at the very end saying, listen, of course no one is perfect. And that's the reason why Christ was crucified, to cover our imperfections. So no one can absolutely be everything Christ is. He covers us. But there are things that makes us Christ, even in our imperfections. And this is for the church. Let me tell you, there could be stumbling blocks. There could be doubt. There could be you believing that things are tarrying and aren't going fast enough according to your view. Don't let the journey frustrate you. Don't let it frustrate you. Keep your eye on why you're here. It's not who's in the race, brothers and sisters. It's who finished the race. Finish reading.
Yes, sir. Verse number 13. Watch therefore, For ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh.
Come on.
For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods.
Come on.
And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1.
Come on.
To every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey.
Every person here received a gift or talent through Christ at baptism. That means he's expecting something from you. An increase from what was sown in you. Read.
Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained other 2.
Yes.
But he that received 1 went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money.
So someone said, well, I got the talent, but I'm going to dig it in the earth. I'm going to hold on to this. You know, make sure nothing happened to it. Come on.
Verse 19. And after a long time the Lord of those servants cometh, and he reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more.
So one said, you sold this in me, and by the time you returned, Christ, I brought you double. That's someone who did what? Work. Read.
21. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over few things. I will make thee ruler over many things.
Okay. You're in business now. In my kingdom, you get this, 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 and that for doubling what I sowed in you. Read.
Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord.
Come on.
Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast that is thine. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gathered where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received my own with usury.
He said, man, you could have gave that money to let somebody else flip it. And at least I would have got something out of the deal. He said, give it to them. At least they get interest. So what are we sitting here to bring forth the kingdom? And if we're doing so, it first starts by doing what? Understanding the end of the journey first. Not the things that make you feel good about being in this truth. Because it tells us in the book of Ezekiel that he told Ezekiel to eat that roll in the 3rd chapter. It was sweet in the mouth, and that's what it is when we first find out we're Israel. But the journey, once it gets into your belly and you realize what we've actually partook and understand, it becomes bitter. You mean to tell me we have to go through all this to get it? Well, guess what? That's the lot of an Israelite. That's the lot we were pulled as God's people. And that's twofold if you're in Christ. So yes, it's sweet to know what we're going to get. But the frustration is coming in when we start to view what we would have to go through to actually get it. And then all the disappointments and all the things that we experience in the journey may frustrate us. But that's what I say. That's why I'm glad in this truth, in this journey, that when this ministry first began, I was helped with seeing the end of the journey. There's going to be good times on the path, and we ought to be thankful for those. But it's going to be a lot of disappointment. There's going to be a lot of heartache, death. Even down the line, when it all break out and break down, betrayal. But keep our lanterns trimmed and always see the journey. Once you get past that trial, I know a lot of you play video games, some of you. Because growing up, I used to play video games and all that, Atari and all that, to let you know how out of date I am. But how many times I get frustrated when here it is, Donkey Kong or something, and you get to the top of it, and one of those barrels hits you on the head, and you can never get to the next level. And I'm sitting there with a pocket full of quarters, frustrated, until I find a cheat code or something to get to the next level. Well, that's what life is. That's what it is in this truth. When you overcome something that would have turned you back, you have now stepped to the next level of faith. And now when someone falls weak where you was weak, you know how to have them see straight beyond that moment that's blocking them. Finish reading, Elder Lawya.
Yes, sir. Verse 28. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which have 10 talents. For unto everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that have not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness, there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Why does it say there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth? That's the what? That's the unrepairable regret. Knowing that you understood the journey. And now, Christ is telling you, no. Wailing, that's crying, that's breaking down. That's not being able to repair things. The opportunity was to finish. Finish reading.
Yes, sir. Verse number 31. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him,
come on.
Then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory.
Come on.
And before him shall be gathered all nations.
All nations of people now. Israelites, Edomites, Ishmaelites, Elamites, Hamites, Japhites. All nations. Keep in mind, there's no such thing as mixed people. The Most High is not the author of confusion. You are who your father is and what his father was. That's how a nation is determined, through the Father. So only in a confused world would they make you believe that there's a such thing as mixed people that cannot be identified. The seed is through the man. So it's not like Christ is going to come back and he's going to be like, well, hold up. I don't know what to do with this person who's part Chinese and part black. Okay? All nations will be before him. Read.
And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats.
Exactly. So now everybody's going to be separated according to their nation. Eventually, those in Christ will be placed back into the lands of their forefathers. The same lands that were during the divide of Noah. Read.
And he shall set the sheep on the right hand, but the goats on the left.
Come on.
Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world.
Who is Christ preparing this kingdom for? Who? Who are these people? People he recognized like himself. Those who understand the endurance, the trials. Well, what about my temptation and what I go through? Christ's mission right after the baptism was temptation. Who are these sheep? Check it out. Read it.
Verse 35. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat.
These are the people. If you want to know who is Christ and whether or not you as an individual measure up, here are your requirements. I was a hungered. Read.
And ye gave me meat.
And you gave me meat. Whenever I was a hungered, you fed me. Read.
I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink.
I was thirsty, and you were there to give me drink. Read.
I was a stranger, and ye took me in.
I was outside, a stranger with no place to go. You're not, here it is. You have people that you're not even related to and have put them on your sofa. Strangers out there. And you took me in. Read.
Naked, and ye clothed me.
I had no clothes, Christ said. I was naked, and you clothed me. Read.
I was sick, and ye visited me.
I was sick, and you were there to heal me and do things, visit me and pray for me, and got me through that trying sickness. Some people might ask, well, hold up. How can this be Christ saying you did this for me? This is how you know if you measure up. Read.
I was in prison, and ye came unto me.
I was in prison, and you visited me. Read.
Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, and fed thee, or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in, or naked, and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick, or in prison, and came unto thee?
When did I ever see you like that, Christ? What are you talking about, the righteous ass? Read.
And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, insomuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren.
If you done this to the least of my brethren, what we see here, where you had an opportunity to turn someone away, but didn't. To clothe, feed, help, even in sickness, when you had the power to say no, but you found a way. This is how you know Christ. And I thank the Most High, because when I look back at this, and this is why I know I'm going to see her again, folks, my mother taught me this. I'm going to tell you this right now. I could never understand why she did certain things growing up. I could never, when my cousins had some issues from down south, they was on her couch. I could never understand when her sister were having issues, they would come to her, and she didn't have much. There was a Vietnam vet by the name of Booker that lived down the block who was suffering, and guess what? He got put out, and I'm growing up and all that. I'm like 11 years old, like, what is this guy doing on my couch? And then here's my father. You know your mama. She's always taking people in. She always, but don't worry about it. She's like, God don't like ugly Richard. Let him stay for a couple of days. That's Christ. That's Christ. And one thing about people in this body, and this is what the Most High gathered the elect to the elect, it's nothing for any of us to think twice about doing this. Not just for each other, but for strangers, because we've done it. And that's why Christ says his sheep, who he knew from the foundation of the earth, we were with him in the beginning. And everything we're doing in the earth to help others is what he would have did if he could stand in your place. And the devil would try to make us believe and look at each other contrary, folks, to who we are in Christ. And that's why I always say when I speak to brethren and I talk with them, and I speak to brothers who say, man, I'm talking about people in the world. Man, I don't know why you still deal with this guy, or recall this person did this and this person said that. And I say, brother, I just talked to a brother the other day. And I say, brother, at the end of the day, we have to try our best to see what Christ sees in other people. Not always holding this negative view because you had a bad experience with someone. How can you run around with, don't you know you're cutting yourself off from your own people that way? Now, you don't let them allow their faults to harm you, but you stay close enough in proximity to help them so that one day they can do what? Have your back and do what? Fight for you. That's Christ. When Christ says, don't hold a grudge, don't do this, don't do that. He didn't say that based on the person that you're lashing out against. He said that so that you can stay spiritually healthy and not hold something that could do what? Turn you back. He gave us his tenets in Matthew 5 for us. Read.
And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren,
come on,
ye have done it unto me.
If you did it to the least of my people, you've done it unto me. These are Christ. Folks, don't never let anyone, always think back to the beginning when you're frustrated. And don't ever let anyone in this earth turn you dark. Let me tell you, folks, when y'all get an opportunity, and I don't know if y'all look at this, but I'm going to look at it again. Y'all need to go back and check out. And I've seen some of these episodes before I even got the truth. You have to know the Bible to understand the narrative of Star Wars. Let me tell you, Darth Vader was the coldest and more powerful, and at one point, the most honorable, until he was turned dark. Something in him he couldn't forgive. And it had to do everything with his passion and his love for his mother, the love for his loved one. It's always personal. But Satan will use what you love to turn you dark. Always see the cross, see the crucifix, to understand whatever we're dealing with, it isn't bigger than that. Never let, because a moment will pass and the devil will flee. Understand, if you are doing these things, that's all Christ requires of you. And while doing it, you're going to be used. People are not going to appreciate it. All types of stuff going to frustrate you in doing good. But that's the devil trying to turn you dark, to turn you away. So if that same person came before you again, or another person, because I was burned the first time, I'm not going to help Christ this time. We're almost done. Elder Lawya, let's get Matthew 19:16.
St. Matthew 19, verse 16.
Yes.
Honor thy father and thy mother, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
Come on.
The young man saith unto him, All these things have I kept from my youth up. What lack I yet?
Now, I'm going here first because why, brothers and sisters? We all find it a certain level of a badge of honor, which is okay, knowing that we are following God's law. I'm an Israelite. These are the things I don't eat. These are the things that I no longer do. Good. But did you know you would need more? The rich man came to Christ and said, yeah, I do all the 10 commandments. Check this out. Read it, Elder Lawya.
Verse 21. Yeshua said unto him, If thou wilt be perfect, go and sell all that thou hast and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. Okay, you follow the law. I know you got a little something. Give it all, give it to the poor. Come follow me. Let's see if you really believe in me. Now, this guy is looking at his riches. It tell you in the homilies, for those who, sometimes I read those stories just a comparison to get some context, that if the guy would have let everything go, the Most High, through his ministry and teaching and going and doing Christ's word, he would have gave him 100 times the amount that he was giving up at the moment. Now, that's his story. Let me tell you my story. Working, insurance company, up there, making a lot of money. Right? Even a promotion down the line. But I had to deal with my son. I didn't want to lose my son because I was raising my son by myself at the time. So I had to find a way to get out of things. A little disability thing can work for me a little bit. That could buy me a few checks. But it was the word I was focusing on. Imagine leaving the country with nothing. All you have, going out without purse or script to a country or countries you have never seen before. Not knowing when and how you were coming back or where you were going. With nothing. Zero. And I'm going to tell you, may the Lord bless their soul, but when I was teaching in England and we used to go to the Sabbath, and guess what? We would pass the bucket around, it'd be like a little bar that they would turn into a church or whatever. They turn anything into a church over there. Let me tell you, rec center, doesn't matter what it is, we would actually get about 15 to 22 euro from a collection. Go to Dutch Pot,
which was a Jamaican spot, buy what we could with that 22 and split it amongst those in the household with about 6 or 7 people. If I was looking at just providing and taking care of myself and my family, with what I know, with the ingenuity that the ingenuitive mind that I have to be able to do things, I could have been successful by myself. See? A lot of you. Let me tell you, folks. In the world, in this Molochian world, they require Satan under the Molochian rule, in order for you to go to certain levels, requires you to give up a sacrifice. You can still live. It's different with Christ. You are the sacrifice. You got to be willing to weigh your whole life and step out on faith. That means losing everything you have to one day be restored by Christ if you truly believe in him. And I'm a living testimony that, guess what? I wish I understood how faith worked 30 years ago. I thought it was something I needed to do in this world to be successful. But that's temporal fame. That's carnal. It's another thing to know how the Most High works, where you can give up everything. And you know what? I still landed on solid ground. I'm not dead. I always had a place over me. I always had food. You know what? This is deep, because the world didn't tell me that I can progress like this in faith. That's a whole nother level. And why am I putting this out there with the rich man and talking about this? I know that there's nothing for me to walk away again, because I know he's going to sustain me again. And that's the faith that I can help share on this journey well beyond Babylon with the people in this church. And that's why I'm traveling to the churches. It's almost time. Elder Lawya.
Yes, sir.
Let's finish reading what you got down to 30, please.
Yes, sir. Verse number 22.
Yeah.
But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possession. Then said Yeshua unto his disciples, Verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven.
Now, when it says a rich man can hardly get into the kingdom of heaven, when it says a rich man cannot get into the kingdom of heaven, or can get, it's like him going through the eye of the needle. What does that mean? Well, the eye of the needle for a rich man, because if you're riding a camel, you got a lot of stuff on top of your camel. And I don't care how much substance you have. In order to get through the eye of the needle to get into that city, that rich man got to take all that stuff off and leave it on the other side to get in. So it's more than whether or not you, the Most High, have blessed you with finances or goods or assets. It's deeper than that. When the time comes, who would be willing to say, you know what? It ain't going to do me no good anyway. Let me turn all these assets into real-time tangibles to distribute for those who are left, so that we can build more farms, more food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Christ was going to bless this man a hundredfold. But he thought that he was going to get in strictly knowing the law. No, Christ requires you to sacrifice something you love in you. Killing yourself to be what? Renewed. In the world, I was striving. You wouldn't believe how many times I came to New York, hit factory, signed this deal, doing this, thinking that, man, Bobby Brown, this dude can't sing. I can do that. And you know what I mean? Just throwing the hat up, dancing, singing. And I thought I was going, my mother thought I was crazy when I walked away from the music. She says, if you're not going to do it, we're done. Because I definitely ain't going to get nothing out of the rest of these kids. All respect to my brothers and my sister. Only to come in the truth and get some guy off the plane of the story I gave y'all earlier from Amsterdam who ended up playing music. Where Zion came from. The Most High said, no, I've never taken anything from you. But you've given it up for me, and I will allow you to do it to glorify me. So it doesn't matter what your talent is, it will be tested. Your gifts will be tested, but are you willing to put it down for Christ and pick it up again? Now, I know everybody in their minds are thinking about some of the things they've having to give up, and y'all can relate to these stories. This is why we're together in this room today. Read it, Elder Lawya.
Verse 24. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God.
So when it says a camel through an eye of the needle, some people used to think it was talking about a sewing needle. No. The eye of the needle is what the entry of the city. Now we have to see that mission, that kingdom as what? The city. But in order to get in, you have to shed everything and be willing to put it all just to duck under and get into Christ's kingdom. Because that's what he had to do. He had to shed it all, including himself. Read.
25. When his disciples heard it, they were exceedingly amazed, saying, who then can be saved?
Man, can any of us be saved? I mean, this guy followed the law. He has a reputation of following the law. This guy is more pious than we are. Let me tell you, Christ didn't pick the disciples because they were the most righteous in the earth. He chose them because they were the more wretched. He wanted people to understand what he could do by transforming the sick and those that were wrong into mighty teachers, to confound the wisdom of the Sadducees and Pharisees. Christ could have went straight to the temple to pick the top cat who knew the scrolls, who understood the Torah. Nah. He went to those and Christ ran around with these 12 bands of these guys. So even they're asking, yo, this guy followed the law. He has a reputation amongst us. If he can't get in, Christ, what of us? Right? Come on.
26. But when Yeshua beheld them and said unto them, with men this is impossible.
With men it's impossible.
But with God all things are possible. Then answered Peter and said unto him, behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore?
Now he's talking about, now they come back to how are we getting in? Read, check this out.
And Yeshua said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration.
Now check this out. Christ is telling them, like, listen, y'all going to war to the end of your life. And you're going to have to die doing it and have faith that I'm going to regenerate you at the end to receive a reward. They're being told that you're not even going to receive it in this lifetime. But yet we become impatient. And we're living in the times they hoped to live in, where we may see his coming. And they ran to the death as if they were going to receive the kingdom then. So the question is, who really believes? Do you really believe Christ is bringing Israel a kingdom? If you do, it's not confirmed in word. It's confirmed in the heavens through what? Through finishing. Read on.
Ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory.
You get the kingdom when I come back. Die. Die as a servant and establish a kingdom that will do what? Raise the valley of the dry bones in the near end. They died, brothers and sisters, so that we can receive what we're receiving now. And if they didn't give up all the way to the death, we cannot give up. Finish.
Ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone that hath forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life.
And shall inherit everlasting life. That's the real deal. That's what we called to. That's what we're called to. Elder Lawya, let's get to Philippians 2 and 12. What verse you left off there, Elder Lawya?
29.
Let's go to 30.
Verse 30. But many that are first shall be last.
Many are they what?
But many that are first shall be last.
Many that was first shall be last. What is that saying? Folks, we're going to have people who run, like if I would have ran from the beginning when I didn't want to do this, and got up into this point and said, you know what? Whatever. You know what? It would have been the guy coming in at the last hour to receive the reward for all my work for all these decades. That means the last person who came in without all these works, that faith was more than my 20 years because that person endured and made it in. That's why he says, the last shall be first. That's why even when I go into these cities, I'm watching for the young man or the young men who will come in fresh or not come in fresh, people who still have the eye of the lion, not the eye of the tiger, who still have that fire lit in them to finish as if it was the first day, because I know that's going to be the spirit that's going to sustain this young man or that woman. And that is the spirit that's going to do what? It's going to prop me up and help me when I fall weak, because I'm not perfect. We need each other. But as a teacher, as someone in this work, understanding the longevity that it takes, or the view of longevity that it takes, it's inspiring to see someone with that fire and that drive in them that was in me from the beginning, folks. And that's why every time I teach, people wonder how I can teach with so much of this and so much of that. You know, even in the academy, bringing different angles and all that. You know why? Because the fire never went out. And I understand that that people are looking to me for strength. My mother passed. It broke me. I've never cried like that in my life. And I'm standing before you all. I'm Elder Rawchaa, the Gathering of Christ Church. Welcome to this week of the Hebrew and Bible Academy. I wasn't going to let my weakness and what I was going through affect the mission. Philippians 2:12. Elder Lawya.
Yes, sir. Philippians 2, verse 12. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling.
Read it again.
Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only.
Not just because I'm here. And sometimes I have to be here in the presence to remind everyone to what this is. But not just in my presence, but in my absence. Keep the mission in the forefront. It's going to come a time, brothers and sisters, with the cameras off and everything. There will be conversations telling you, brothers and sisters, this is it, and this is what I have to do, and this is what that the Most High told me, this is what y'all have to do. Here's a time it's going to happen, and I'll see y'all there. Either we can do it together or I'll meet you. But this is what's going down. That meeting will happen. And like I said earlier, it's not going to be anything televised. It ain't going to be a YouTube video. There ain't going to be no phones. It's going to be, this is what the Most High prepared us from the beginning of this ministry for. It's time. If there's anything we need to work out so that we don't turn on each other while wherever we're going to go, let's work it out now. Search out your own soul salvation, read.
With fear and trembling.
With fear and trembling. And brothers and sisters, when it was mentioned in the epistles to search out your own soul salvation, this is not about Elder Rawchaa. You have to ask the Most High honestly, why are you here? What are you here for? What do you hope to get out of this? What will it take for you to finish? Search out your own soul salvation with fear and trembling. Brothers and sisters, I've been all around the world. I've been a part of the Christian apostolic Pentecostal faith coming up. I got a line of pastors in my family coming almost off the slave ships. I've contended and debated with people from different philosophical views of Christianity. I've seen many churches, many mosques. Guess what? Different types of temples. I don't need to be confirmed or convinced that we're standing in the church of Christ. And it's confirmed not through me, but through our interaction with one another. Out of nowhere, through a ministry, the Most High brought forth a family. I've never been in a church before where a brother or sister, doesn't matter what they're dealing with, has an issue, an urgent issue, that someone turned their back on their brother or sister. There's stories, I know that y'all can be up here for hours discussing the importance of having this body behind you. All I'm going to ask you for is to search out your your whole soul salvation with fear and trembling. And think within yourself, what is it that you would have to see or do? See or do or not see? What is it that you, put it this way, here's a better word. What is it that can happen in this ministry or in this work that can stop you from finishing your oath that you made not with the gathering of Christ Church or me, but with Christ? Search out your own soul salvation with fear and trembling. I'm going to tell you now, we're in the fall of Judea where they're coming against the cities, and y'all going to realize anyone that's not here when it's time to do what we need to do, going to realize that you were played. When there's no more, when these buildings are gone, when the church is broken down and no one can gather and everyone has been dispersed and we're now being moved into the next phase of this ministry, you're going to realize in whatever moment, at whatever moment, I was played. Search out your own soul salvation and know, and guess what? Be confident to know that if this is not the place, you need to tell me where it is so I can follow you there. And any individual thinking otherwise, I need y'all to understand this. Y'all don't have the time I had to start from the beginning. Search out your soul salvation with fear and trembling. There's things that you must do to keep your heart in the right place. And that is if you're ever feeling any type of way, if you're feeling negative, if someone offend you, do not go to sleep with that in your heart. You are thinking dark, not of your brother or your sister, but of Christ. That's Christ you're dealing with there. Never go to sleep. Because if you go to sleep with something in your heart and you didn't go to your brother or sister, or you go to someone else about it, Satan have planted an evil seed in you. And everything you view from that point will be with an evil eye. And you're going to blame a person just for existing, who don't even know that you're doing anything against them, when all you had to do was tell them. Search out your soul's salvation with fear and trembling, and get ready, because we are about to embark on a journey that begins with the fall of the modern day Judea. Eventually they're coming after the cities. We have to stay locked in, stay prayed up. A lot of you don't know this. About a month ago, I had in my meeting, we made a decree amongst the elders that regardless of what someone did wrong in the past, this is how close we are, folks. Regardless of what somebody did in the past, that the elders and the deacons of every church have to reach out to the people who was once a part of the church, and regardless of their sin, invite them back and talk with them. And talk with them. Let them know we never forgot them. Pray with them. And ask, have they seen the error of their ways and would they like to be a part of the body again, and will take steps towards that? Because I believe we're in the last leg of this ministry of bringing people in. And we're going to run as much as we can to bring as many people in and to save those who are a part of the body before it closes. And I don't know if was that announced here? No, it was supposed to be announced here. It was announced here today. So with that, we're going to shut down the video real quick. And after we shut down the video, we'll have, thank you for joining us on YouTube, historytimes.org. See you in the academy.